Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of others. I'm Shivan Channa.
And I am Hem Corsair. On the show today, a powerful earthquake in northwest China has claimed the lives of over 100 people in Gansu province. Scores were injured, as well as casualties reported in the Qinghai province as well. We will get you all the developments and the details as and when they come in on the show.
Also on World DNA, we bring you the details of the US-led 10-nation coalition which has been announced in a bid to counter the Houthi threat in the Red Sea. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced Operation Prosperity Guardian, a multinational security initiative. All this and more right here on World DNA. But first, let's get you started with the headlines.
Nature unleashes its fury in China. Magnitude 6.2 earthquake kills at least 110 in northwest Gansu province and leaves more than 200 injured.
Rescue operations underway in China's northwestern Gansu province after magnitude 6.2 earthquake kills at least 110 people and injures hundreds more.
Hamas posts video of 3 elderly Israeli hostages titled "Don't Let Us Grow Old Here." Hostages seen pleading for their immediate release as psychological warfare peaks.
Red Sea face-off intensifies as US announces a 10-nation coalition to quell Houthi attacks on ships. The UK, France and Italy also are part of America's multinational security initiative.
Eyewitnesses capture dramatic footage as volcano erupts in Reykjanes Peninsula of southwest Iceland after weeks of intense earthquake activity. Our top story on World DNA today, at least 110 people have been killed, more than 200 others have been injured following a magnitude 6.2 earthquake in China's northwestern Gansu province.
Well, the quake has prompted intense rescue operations. The Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for all-out efforts in search and relief work. The trembler caused severe shaking and heavy economic damage, flattening homes and buildings across the area. The earthquake knocked out power and water supply and transportation services in some parts of the adjoining Qinghai province as well. Now, it was followed by several aftershocks.
In Qinghai province's Haidong Laon city, at least 11 people have been killed and more than 100 are reportedly injured after the earthquake. As per the authorities, the quake sent people running on the streets. Now, the 6.2 magnitude earthquake was logged in the Gansu-Qinghai border area late on Monday, the same area where Haidong is also located.
The epicenter of the quake, Jishishan County, is about 100 kilometers to the southwest of Gansu province capital, Lanzhou. Now, as per the state authorities, the temperature in the Jishishan County nosedived to minus 14 degrees Celsius. And this happened little later, making rescue efforts even more difficult. Building collapses have exposed people to subpar temperatures at a time when China is experiencing record low temperatures. The Chinese top leader, Xi Jinping, has ordered the deployment of heavy workforces to prevent secondary disasters caused by factors beyond the earthquake. The country's Emergency Management Office has activated a level 4 of disaster relief emergency tents. Folding beds, warm covers, food and water are being supplied to the people affected by the earthquake as well.
Earthquakes are not uncommon in China. In August this year, a magnitude 5.4 earthquake hit eastern China, injuring 23 people, collapsing dozens of buildings In September 2022, an earthquake jolted the southwestern Chinese province of Sichuan, and the strong tremors of 6.8 magnitude killed at least 74 people and triggered landslides. However, China's deadliest earthquake in recent years was recorded in 2008 at a magnitude of 7.9. The deadly earthquake killed at least 90,000 people in Sichuan, and the earthquake was followed by years-long efforts to rebuild the damages with more resistant materials.
All right, we're now being joined by Mr. Einar Tangen, who is a political and economic commentator. He joins us live from Beijing. So welcome to World DNA. Mr. Einar, of course, devastating news, devastating visuals which have come in from the Gansu province and the adjoining province as well. Reports have also come in that China is anyway experiencing a harsh winter. Temperatures in the region have dipped to minus 14 degrees Celsius. What would be the actual the issues and the challenges that the rescue workers would be facing at the moment?
Well, it's a combination of weather and aftershocks. They're going to be very, very careful, but they are rushing aid to there. China has an excellent logistics system, and they're going to use that to pour aid and people into help these folks. I mean, the danger here is that many of the buildings, although they might be standing, might be in danger from aftershocks. They need to get those people to safe areas. They need to get warm food, clothing, restore the electricity, heating, gas, etc. These are all things that were severely impacted by this earthquake. Remember, China sits at the confluence of three tectonic plates, and the Tibetan plateau, which is where this happened, is particularly sensitive to this. In 1900, there was 200,000 people died from an earthquake. This was a relatively deep earthquake, about 10 miles down, and the possibility of aftershocks have increased because of where it was located.
Right, sir, as you mentioned as well, let's also talk about the infrastructure and preparedness in this case. As you mentioned, China sits on the confluence of three tectonic plates. What are the standard operating procedures in such a scenario? Of course, as Shivan mentioned as well, harsh winters have made the situation difficult as well. So what are the likely challenges that may come up going forward?
Well, it's, getting people and supplies to the area is one issue. It's the safety of the area itself. As you continue to have aftershocks, as I said, you have to move people out of the buildings that have been compromised, but you don't know which ones have been. So, the Army will probably be used. They have a very, very strong civil response program that they involve for, these types of emergencies. There is a tremendous amount of pre-planning that goes into this. They know that earthquakes are coming. The question is, how do you respond to them? So right now it's about getting people to safety, making sure they're safe and warm, then inspecting buildings, and then trying to get people back to those areas where they can be safe, warm, and continue life. But that also means restoring all the vital infrastructure, heating, obviously in this kind of cold, you need that, you need cooking gas, etc. So it's a project that's going to take weeks and months, not just a few days.
Mr. Tangen, I also wanted to get your thoughts on this. Now, the Chinese leader, of course, Xi Jinping, had ordered deployment of heavy workforces to prevent secondary disasters which could be caused due to factors beyond the earthquake. What factors are there beyond the earthquake which can cause further damage here?
Well, he's referring to the fact that you could have building collapses. The interruption of services could severely impact people's ability to stay warm. These are things that China feels it can control. You cannot control the movement of the earth, but you can control your reaction to it. And he's basically given orders, as they have before in the 2000 period when they had earthquakes. It said that human life has to be a priority here. To the extent that there's rubble, they need to remove people as quickly as possible. And these are all the things that they can do. The aftershocks, they're just going to have to deal with as they come.
All right, Mr. Tangen, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA, sharing all your insights. Of course, this is devastating news which has come in, and here's hoping that the death toll does not increase any further and rescue efforts can be completed at the earliest. Anyone who's stuck beneath rubble, any such instances can be tackled at the earliest.
Well, let's shift our focus. The big updates in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Efforts have begun for renewing negotiations amid a continued offensive in Gaza.
Well, it's a West Asian region, and Hamas has meanwhile released a video of 3 Israeli hostages pleading for their release. Now, the Hamas video shows 3 elderly hostages who are aged between 79 and 84. Here they are on your screens. All 3 of them could be seen sitting on chairs at an undisclosed location, and they're asking to be freed. Israel has strongly condemned the release of the video and has called it a criminal terror video.
Now, talks for the release of remaining hostages in Gaza have renewed as per reports. CIA chief met Qatari Prime Minister and the head of Israel's Mossad spy agency in Warsaw on Monday to discuss a potential new deal. Mossad chief was also reported to have met with Qatari Prime Minister in Norway on Friday night.
Hamas officials have meanwhile reiterated that a potential deal will only be possible if Israel stops its attacks. Meanwhile, a U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met Israeli leaders on Monday. He said that the United States will keep providing Israel with arms to defend the country. He also announced that the first commercial trucks have entered the Gaza Strip since the war started. Following the talks with his counterpart about scaling down the offensive, Israeli Defense Minister signaled that Israel will gradually transition to the next phase of operations in Gaza.
We will continue to operate in different levels of intensity according to the situation in the region, and I can tell you that soon we will be able to distinguish between different areas in Gaza. In every area where we achieve our mission, we will be able to transition gradually to the next phase and start working on bringing back local population.
The United States has announced a 10-nation coalition against Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. The United States, meanwhile, also expressed its willingness to engage with India in resolving ongoing conflicts in West Asia as well as Ukraine.
Now, amid the diplomatic efforts, Israeli strikes continue to hit civilian areas in the Gaza Strip. We now show you visuals of the devastation from various areas in Gaza. Let's first take a look. This is northern town of Beit Alaya, where buildings have turned to rubble.
While these visuals are from Deir el-Bala in the central Gaza, wounded and dead here were rushed to hospitals in aftermath of Israeli strikes on Monday.
And this is southern Gaza, which is witnessing the heaviest bombardments ever since the renewed offensive.
The situation is particularly grim in Khan Younis, where several are reported to be killed and injured daily as they are caught in the line of fire.
Israel has also released a video showing strikes on targets in Syria. This, it says, is in retaliation to a number of launches from the country towards Israel. And on the other hand, Hamas has also released footage of its own of purported strikes on an Israeli military vehicle being hit by a Cornet missile in northern Gaza's Beit Alaya.
Now, several countries have agreed to jointly carry out patrols in the southern Red Sea and Gulf of Aden to try to safeguard commercial shipping against Houthi attacks.
Well, the Yemen rebels say they are supporting Palestinians under siege by Israel in the Gaza Strip. A statement on Tuesday by U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin identified several countries taking part in an international force. The security coalition includes the United States, of course, and along with the US, there is the United Kingdom, Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles, and Spain. Now, it is unclear if they are willing to do what US warships have done of late, shoot down the Houthi missiles and drones, and rush to the aid of commercial ships under attack.
The Iran-aligned Houthis have attacked vessels in Red Sea shipping lanes and fired drones and missiles at Israel since the start of the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. It has heightened fears of a wider conflict in West Asia. Houthi rebels who rule much of Yemen say their attacks are a show of solidarity with Palestinians. They've pledged to continue until Israel stops attacking the Gaza Strip, more than 1,600 kilometers from Sana'a.
The Houthi attacks launched from Yemen target the flow of supplies between Asia and the West and pose a significant threat to the global economy. The attacks have driven up the cost of shipping goods through the Red Sea. About 23,000 ships each year pass through the narrow Bab al-Mandeb Strait, connecting the Gulf of Aden with the Red Sea and beyond to the Suez Canal.
For more on this, we're now being joined by Dov Zakem, who is former Under-Secretary of Defense in George W. Bush administration and currently Senior Advisor at Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Thank you for having me.
Now, sir, Operation Prosperity Guardian, the 10-nation coalition to counter Houthis. Do you reckon that this is now a full-scale maritime conflict in the region? And what can you tell us about the efficacy of this coalition?
Well, the Houthis would like it to be a full-scale maritime war, simply because that way they are closely tied to the war in Gaza, and they're clearly trying to expand the war. Whether it's the Houthis themselves or the Iranians behind them is an open question. My guess is this is all coming from Tehran. Tehran works through various proxies, including the Houthis. The Houthis have said, as you've reported, that any ship that has some kind of connection with Israel is going to be a target. Now, this coalition is part of what's called Task Force 153, which has been operating in the region for some time. But now, of course, they're finding that British Petroleum and Maersk, the great shipping line, are essentially not going into the Red Sea. And I think it's for that reason that this coalition has been put together. A couple of things to note. First is Bahrain is the only Gulf country that actually has joined this coalition, and it's been part of the task force for some time. There is no consensus between some of the others in the Gulf. The Saudis would rather not have attacks on the Houthis because they're trying to, they've had some peace and quiet for a year and they want to maintain it that way. The Emirates, on the other hand, are much more forceful. It also begs the question of what exactly this coalition is going to do. Is it simply going to try to knock down missiles that are fired at ships, or will it retaliate against the Houthi launchers? There are a lot of people in Washington, in particular, I think, who would like to see the latter approach, take out the launchers and teach the Houthis a lesson. And in fact, one might go even further, something I suggested in an article in The Hill last week, which is make it clear to the Iranians that they're going to be a target if this keeps up.
Mr. Zakem, I just want to come in there. You know, of course, these are the actions that one would assume the U.S. would take or this coalition would take, knock out at their sources of ammunition, knock out at the, you know, their bases from where they are carrying out these attacks. But I just want to take this up with you. Now, in spite of the repeated attacks by the Houthis, the U.S. has not struck back to date or targeted any of the militants' weapons or other sites. Now, yesterday, even just recently, the U.S. Defense Secretary, he was asked this same question, but there was no clear answer. I just wanted to take your opinion on this. Why has the US not retaliated yet? How often do we see attacks on US ships or ones that US ships are intercepting and yet no solid attack counter?
Well, I think the reason is the Saudis have been pleading with us not to do that. We have the capability to shoot down drones, to shoot down missiles, and essentially to take a defensive posture. As I've said, I personally and many people in Washington feel that that's insufficient, but you do have this split opinion, if you will, between the two most powerful countries with the most powerful militaries in the Gulf, the Saudis and the Emiratis. The Saudis would rather us not attack the Houthis directly. The Emiratis seem to be more forceful and forward-leaning in that regard. And then, of course, behind it all is Iran. And again, the Gulf states, with a strong exception of Bahrain, are very ambivalent about taking on Iran. Remember, the Saudis only recently essentially restored decent, if not better than decent, relations with Iran. I don't think they want to jeopardize those if they can avoid it.
All right, Mr. Dov Zakhem, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA. Always a pleasure to get your insights on matters, and we are going to be tracking this closely. Would like to have a word with you on this soon.
Thank you very much indeed.
Now, in a landmark ruling, the Vatican has formally approved Christian priests blessing same-sex couples.
The Vatican said that the priests can administer blessings as long as the couples are not part of regular church rituals. The Vatican's new declaration is seen as a major step forward in the church's ministry to LGBTQ people and recognizes the deep desire in many Catholic same-sex couples for God's presence in their loving relationships. It opens the door to non-liturgical blessings for the same-sex couples, something that had been previously off limits for bishops, priests and deacons. Many have described the move as a major step forward in the church's stand on the LGBTQI community.
However, the order does draw a clear line, stating that it should not be confused with the sacrament of heterosexual marriage. It added that such blessings will not legitimize irregular situations, but be a sign that God welcomes all. The document also said the blessing should not in any way be linked to a civil marriage ceremony. This includes clothing gestures that are apt for a wedding. The Vatican describes marriage as a lasting union between man and woman, and that's why it has long opposed same-sex marriage.
El Papa amplía el término bendición, porque a veces pensábamos que solamente se bendecía a la gente que estaba pura, perfecta, en la que todo estaba bien, incluso sano, y ahora se entiende la bendición ayuda al enfermo, al que está perdido, al que está confundido.
However, since Pope Francis took office as the head of the Catholic Church, he has tried to convince more than 1 billion members of the church to be more welcoming to the LGBTQ people without changing the moral doctrine on same-sex activity.
Now, the document is an elaborated version of a letter Pope Francis sent to 5 conservative cardinals in October. The Pope hinted that an official change was in the works. The document is expected to meet heavy criticism from conservative cardinals and several members of the church.
All right, we're now shifting focus to India. COVID-19 may be making a resurgence globally, and fresh cases of a new subvariant are coming in from across the world, following multiple such reports from the Indian state of Kerala.
Now, the central government has issued a vigilance advisory to all states. Karnataka has now made masks mandatory for all citizens above the age of 60. In this advisory, the Union Ministry has asked states to send data on all positive cases for sequencing at labs run by Indian SARS-CoV-2 Consortium on Genomics to bolster vigilance. The states have also been asked to report suspected cases as well.
Now, according to the latest data from the Union Health Ministry, 127 fresh cases have been reported across the country, with 111 and one reported death from Kerala. 15 cases of the new JN1 subvariant have also been detected in Goa. Following this spike in neighbouring states, Karnataka Health Minister Gundu Rao has announced a mandatory mask advisory for everyone over the age of 60 in the state.
Kerala Health Minister Veena George has said that the JN1 subvariant was earlier detected in 15 people flying into the country from Singapore. According to the minister, close to 2,000 oxygen beds, 2,500 ICU beds and around 1,000 ventilator ICU beds are on standby.
Moreover, INSACOG Chief Dr. N.K. Arora has clarified that the reported death in Kerala was caused primarily by underlying health conditions affecting the patient's vital organs instead of solely just being COVID.
The JN1 subvariant is a descendant of the BA2.86 variant of COVID, commonly referred to as Prola. Symptoms of an infection include fever, nasal discharge, throat infection, migraines and mild gastrointestinal issues. It is important to note that there may not be any symptomatic distinction between these variants. JN1 was first detected by the US's CDC earlier in September. Analysis of the subvariant suggests it may either be better at transmissibility or at evading immune systems. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. Of course, this is World DNA. We will be back after this short break. When we come back, the European Union Council has adopted a 12th package of sanctions against Moscow over its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The newly adopted measures aim at targeting Russia's source of revenue, as well as sanctioning several individuals and entities whose assets will be subject to a freeze.
Also on the other side, the second largest economy in the world is having difficulty picking up steam following years of COVID-19 lockdowns, apart from China's real estate meltdown, battering middle-class wealth. Now, there's also the growing threat of unemployment. Details on the other side. Stay tuned.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest story.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. So far on the show, a powerful magnitude 6.2 earthquake in China's northwest. It's resulted in the deaths of at least 110 people in the Gansu province. Casualties have also been reported in the Qinghai province. We will, of course, continue to bring you all the developments on that.
In the first half hour of World DNA, we also told you about the new coalition of 10 nations which has formed. US, of course, leading that pack. This is to counter the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, which have been mounting since several weeks now. Is this the onset of an all-out war, a maritime war in the West Asian region? Of course, we are tracking the developments as they come in. We will be keeping you up to date on all that. As of now, let's get started on the other updates from around the globe. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of others. Let's get you started with the headlines. EU adopts 12th package of sanctions against Russia. Latest package imposes additional import and export bans, combats sanctions, circumvention and closes loopholes. Nature unleashes fury in China. Magnitude 6.2 earthquake kills at least 110 people in northwest Gansu province in China and leaves more than 200 others injured.
Rescue operations underway in China's northwestern Gansu province after magnitude 6.2 earthquake kills at least 110 people and injured hundreds more.
Red Sea face-off intensifies as US announces 10-nation coalition to quell Houthi attacks on ships. UK, France and Italy also part of America's multinational security initiative.
Eyewitnesses captured dramatic footage as volcano erupts in Reykjanes peninsula of southwest Iceland after weeks of intense earthquake activity.
Girona's dream season continues as they beat Alaves 3-0. The win takes the Catalan side back to the top of the table in La Liga. A new set of sanctions have been slapped on Russia by the European Union Council. They are targeting Russia's revenue stream now. Haim gets you all the details.
Right, Shivan, thank you so much. Now, the European Union Council, it has adopted a 12th package of sanctions against Russia over its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. This is the 12th package. The newly adopted measures aim at targeting Moscow's source of revenue, as well as sanctioning several individuals and entities whose assets will be subject to freeze. Today, I will decode the key elements of this latest sanction imposed by EU on Russia. Over 140 individuals and entities have been added to the EU's sanctions. The assets of these actors are subject to freeze. This includes the Russian military and defense, including military industry companies and private military companies. This also includes actors from the IT sector as well as other important economic actors. Now, the measures also target those who have held elections in the territories of Ukraine that Russia has occupied and those responsible for re-education of Ukrainian children, as well as actors spreading disinformation, propaganda in support of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. The package also focuses on imposing additional import and export bans on Russia. The latest EU sanction focuses on ban import of Russian-made diamonds, aiming to deprive Russia of an important revenue stream, estimated at $4 billion per year. These proposed sanctions are part of an internationally coordinated G7 diamond ban. All G7 members will implement a direct ban on the diamonds exported from Russia at the latest by the 1st of January 2024. The ban on import of Russian goods also focuses on metal goods. This includes raw materials for steel production, processed aluminum products. Moreover, to make it more difficult for Russia to sustain this war, the EU has also tightened the international G7 plus oil price cap. New measures are introduced to closely monitor the sale of tankers to nations that are not a part of the European Union, as well as require more detailed attestation requirements. The EU has imposed a ban on import of liquefied petroleum gas, impacting annual imports worth over €1 billion, with previous sanctions on liquefied petroleum gas to continue for a period of maximum about 12 months here. So those are the latest sanctions that have been imposed in this 12th package on Russia. Back to you, Shivan.
Thanks, Abe. All right, moving further from here. Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin is all set to hold talks with Chinese Premier Li Qiang in Beijing. The two countries have ramped up economic and diplomatic cooperation in recent years. Now, ties have grown closer since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, despite Beijing's insistence that it is neutral in the conflict. According to the government of Russia, Mishustin was greeted upon arrival by Chinese Deputy Foreign Minister, Chinese Ambassador to Russia and Russian Ambassador to China. Chinese Foreign Ministry said Mishustin's visit is a part of a series of regular meetings with his counterpart Li Qiang. The Russian travelled to Shanghai and Beijing in May, where he met President Xi Jinping and signed a series of trade deals. His return to China comes 2 months after President Putin made a rare trip outside Russia to meet Xi Jinping, and a month after a senior Chinese general was hosted in Moscow.
The China-Russia relationship, it has seen major shifts since 1992. At the outset, China's population was greater than Russia's, and the two nations had very similar level of total GDP. Nowadays, China's economy is estimated to be up to 10 times bigger than Russia's. Similarly, trade with Russia is not of major importance to China in terms of value. However, the high share of raw materials, including food, in Russian exports and the transfer of Russian military technology are of strategic importance to China.
Since 2012, when Xi Jinping was first made General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, the relationship has evolved in the face of what both nations consider a rising threat from the West to their regimes. Analysts say Beijing's response to Ukraine war, referred to as pro-Russia neutrality, has so far been much closer to Moscow than it was in 2014 when Crimea was annexed. At the same time, developments since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 have increased Russia's dependency on China.
Shifting our focus now, Iraq held its first provincial elections in a decade on Monday, which is seen as a precursor to the 2025 parliamentary election.
Well, voting for military, security personnel and the internally displaced people in camps on Saturday. Sadr city in Baghdad was notably quiet during Monday's provincial elections, which were marked by a boycott and incidents of violence.
لا أني ولا عائلتي ولا المقربين ولا حتى جواريني رحنا إلى الانتخابات ولا وصلنا، وإذا كانت وعلنوا بأن هناك نسبة عالية تفوق 10% فهذا كذب وافتراء.
Muqtada al-Sadr, a Shiite cleric, urged his supporters to boycott the polls, citing concerns about a corrupt political class.
اليوم اجينا ننتخب مجلس محافظة، نريد نغير الوجوه القديمة ونريد إصلاح للوطن، لأن اللي قبلهم ما سووا لنا شيء، ونريد يعني استقرارهم لأن وضع مو زين هنا.
The provincial elections are crucial, serving as a bellwether for the parliamentary elections slated for 2025. Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, a top Shia cleric, broke tradition by not encouraging participation in Monday's elections. At a polling station in Sadr city, only around 10 voters appeared in the first 5 hours after polling opened.
Before polling, Sadr's supporters vandalized candidate posters and campaign offices, while thousands in Najaf marched to boycott the elections. The turnout was generally low, even in areas not known for supporting Sadr, when young people opting to stay home.
والله اليوم جينا ننتخب نغير من واقع المحافظة، لا نعطي مجال للفاسدين. إن شاء الله نلقي الناس النزيهين اللي يعمرون يطورون بالمحافظة، خصوصا المحافظة الضيقة منكوبة، عانت ما عانت. فاليوم جاي يشوف يعني حضور واسع بالنسبة للرجال للنساء للانتخابات، وإن شاء الله نلقي الناس اللي ترفع شأن المحافظة.
اليوم جينا ننتخب انتخابات شفافة، انتخابات طبيعية، قطوعات ماكو، لتغيير واقع المحافظة، وإن شاء الله ننتخب الأكفأ لخدمة المحافظة. مجالس المحافظات مجالس خدمية لخدمة الناس، وماكو أي تقاطعات وماكو أي ضغوطات بالنسبة للانتخابات.
The controversial action in March of increasing electoral district sizes was viewed as detrimental to smaller parties and independent candidates. Overall, the provincial elections faced challenges with boycotts, violence and low turnout, reflecting underlying dissatisfaction and tensions in Iraq's political landscape. All right, let's get you some business updates now. The second largest economy in the world is having difficulty picking up steam following years of COVID-19 lockdowns.
Now, apart from China's real estate meltdown, which we have been tracking, battering the middle class wealth, there is also growing threat of unemployment. Take a look at this next report for more.
The slump in Chinese real estate and stock markets are wiping away household wealth. UBS, in its August Global Wealth Report, said the net worth per adult in China slid 2.2% to $75,731 in 2022. The report showed total assets per adult fell for the first time since 2000 as non-financial holdings shrank due to the housing market crisis. Middle-class households are currently being compelled to reconsider their financial priorities. Some are giving up on investing or selling assets to get cash. Stock investments and salary packages are down by about 30%. Property investments has fallen by around 20%. Bloomberg Economics estimates that every 5% decrease in property prices will result in the loss of 19 trillion yuan in household wealth. That's about $2.7 trillion. China's financial data shows only a slight decline in current home prices. However, evidence from real estate brokers and private data suppliers show at least 15% fall in the country's most desirable neighborhoods. According to Bloomberg, the value of China's housing industry is likely to fall from roughly 20% of GDP today to about 16% of GDP by 2026. This would increase the chance of unemployment or lower incomes for around 5 million individuals, or 1% of the urban workforce. Financial investments offer little relief. Chinese stocks have lagged their counterparts in developing markets by the largest margin since at least 1998. Mutual funds are also losing money. The $2.9 trillion trust in industry is beginning to show signs of weakness with the latest shadow bank controversy, possibly involving tens of billions of dollars in damages. Previously, affluent Chinese investors have sought high returns from products marketed by loosely regulated shadow banks. But now even high net worth individuals are turning more conservative. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Let's now take a look at some of the recent developments from the world of technology. Major top-tier Indian IT firms have announced steep cuts in yearly hikes and promotions for staff. The move comes amidst an unprecedented global slowdown in tech spending. Understand that employee expense is the biggest cost for IT companies. On an average, 50 to 60% of a company's total expense is on employees. This is given out as a major reason for the IT sector's focus on cost cutting, which results in hiring lesser numbers.
Besides, software firms are offering only 18 to 22% hike to those switching jobs. Earlier, IT employees could get 40% and sometimes even 100 to 120% hike while switching jobs. Many employees fear automation and the rise of artificial intelligence technology might make it harder for the IT sector to pay out what it did. Have you ever wondered how advertisers end up showing their ads on your feed without you specifically searching for it? Well, chances are they might be listening to your offline conversations as well. According to a report by the Cox Media Group, advertising companies can tap into ambient conversations of users via built-in microphones in smartphones, smart TVs and various gadgets. These companies can then collect information and employ that data for targeted advertising. As per the report, advertisers use AI technology to identify relevant conversations and use the collected data to stream advertorials through TV channels, through YouTube and Google. If you think that this is illegal, well, that's not the case. Reports say that this is totally legal. And why? Because consumers usually give consent when accepting terms and conditions of software updates or app downloads.
70% of Iran's gas stations have been disrupted by a cyber attack. The security breach is attributed to Israel's hacking group called Qinghai-Tibetan, which is Persian for predatory sparrow. According to a post by the hacker group, the attack is a response to perceived aggression by the Islamic Republic and its proxies against Israel in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Reports are that the cyber attack began in early hours and was mostly focused in the country's capital of Tehran. Reports further suggest that the attack forced many petrol stations to operate manually. Despite the serious disruptions, the hackers claim to have conducted the cyber attack in a controlled manner. The hackers claim they took precautionary measures to limit potential damage to emergency services and the common public.
Last year in June, the hacker group had targeted a major Iranian steel company as well. According to Iran's civil defense agency, an investigation into the gas station attack is underway.
On to news now from the world of sports. Girona's dream season continues as they brushed aside Alaves 3-0 in the La Liga.
Well, the victory takes them back to the top of the league table, 2 points ahead of Real Madrid. The Catalan side are the surprise package this season. Girona had beaten defending champions Barcelona last week and they kept the ball rolling against Alaves as well. Artem Dovbyk scored the opening goal in the 23rd minute with a close-range strike from a rebound off Alaves goalkeeper Antonio Silveira. Porto doubled the lead in the 42nd minute with a strike from near the edge of the area following a cross by Jan Couto. Girona earned a penalty after Couto was brought down in the box. Dovbyk swept home from the penalty spot for his 10th La Liga goal of the season. And only Real Madrid's Jude Bellingham has scored more at 13.
Girona have only lost once all season, travel to Real Betis on Thursday, while Alaves will host Real Madrid on the same day.
We thank Carlos Ponte, who's endured that cold down there pitch side. Thank you, Jofra, an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Michel Sanchez.
More La Liga action coming up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll look forward to Michel's press conference too. And let's see if he can have some words there with Carlos.
Well, the Champions League round of 16 draw is out and reigning champions Manchester City have been pitted against Danish champions FC Copenhagen.
Copenhagen, remember, qualified for the knockout stages ahead of Manchester United from Group A. Pep Guardiola's treble winners progressed to the last 16 stage at Group G winners with a perfect record. And they'll travel to Denmark in February before they host the lowest ranked club still in the competition in March.
Mikel Arteta's Arsenal are back in the Champions League for the first time since the 2016-17 season and have a tricky round of 16 opponent in former champions Porto. The Portuguese side finished second behind Barcelona in Group H on head-to-head points. German giants Bayern Munich will be strong favourites against Lazio, and record 14-time European champions Real Madrid will also be heavily fancied against RB Leipzig. Last season's runner-up Inter Milan have been pitted against Spanish side Atletico Madrid, while reigning Spanish champions Barcelona take on their Italian counterparts Napoli in an exciting matchup. Now, the other ties are Paris Saint-Germain versus Real Sociedad and PSV versus Borussia Dortmund.
And with that, it's time now for all the updates from the world of entertainment, for which we have with us Alison Lagrange. Over to her.
Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange coming to you from Durban, South Africa. First up, let's get you the top stories from the world of entertainment.
The wax figure of actor Gerard Depardieu has been removed from Paris's most famous wax museum following negative reactions from visitors over allegations about his conduct with women. The decision to remove the figure from the Grevin Museum followed after a recent broadcast report on the actor on French television that has dented his reputation in France and around the world. His behavior towards women came under renewed scrutiny after a documentary revealed him repeatedly making obscene remarks and gestures during a 2018 trip to North Korea. Singer and actor Demi Lovato and musician Jordan Jutes Lutz are set to marry. The happy couple announced their engagement with gushing social media posts. Lovato wrote, and I quote, "I'm still speechless. Last night was the best night of my life, and I can't believe I get to marry the love of my life," unquote. Meghna Gulzar's biopic Sam Bahadur, which is based on the life of India's first Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw, has earned $12 million worldwide. Starring Vicky Kaushal, Sanya Malhotra, Fatima Sana Sheikh in the lead roles, the film has managed to maintain a stronghold at the theatres. This comes despite facing competitions from blockbusters such as Animal and Wonka.
Fans of Roald Dahl now have a chance to get a glimpse at the origin story of Willy Wonka from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Warner Brothers film Wonka released in theatres, much to the delight of holiday goers. Find out more details in our next report.
The holiday season is off to a sweet start. Wonka, a prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, had a promising debut in the US and Canadian theatres. The musical raked in $39 million during its opening weekend. Starring Timothée Chalamet and Hugh Grant, the film looks at the origin of the eccentric chocolatier Willy Wonka. It takes the audience into a world of pure imagination and chocolate concoctions as he tries to open a candy store. Warner Brothers last revived Roald Dahl's classic with the 2005 Tim Burton-directed Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, starring Johnny Depp. It debuted with $56.2 million and ultimately grossed $475 million worldwide. But unlike the early and mid-2000s, in recent years, musicals have struggled at the box office. This is probably why Warner Brothers downplayed the song and dance elements in Wonka. Instead, they focused on their star cast, especially Chalamet. Wonka is the 27-year-old actor's second big release following the 2021 film Dune, and his fan base is definitely helping him draw young ticket buyers. Wonka's success is also helped by the fact that it is the first big release since the end of strike. From Wonka-themed holiday baking championship to Wonka-themed float during the Macy's Day Thanksgiving parade, the film's marketing team went all out. But are these tactics enough to keep Wonka at the top of the box office during the lucrative holiday season? We'll have to wait and see. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Well, I am excited to catch Wonka on the big screen. That's all from me for today. For now, it's back to our New Delhi studio.
And with that, we call a wrap on this edition of World DNA.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep watching Beyond World is One for all your global updates. We'll be back soon.
As democracy strengthens across
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Hema Korsaro and here's a look at all the top stories that we're tracking at this hour. Nature unleashes fury in China. Magnitude 6.2 earthquake kills at least 110 in northwest Gansu province and leaves more than 200 others injured. Xi Jinping calls for an all-out rescue operation. Rescue operations underway in China's northwestern Gansu province after magnitude 6.2 earthquake kills at least 110 people and injures hundreds more.